Hello and welcome everybody back to the Insider Galaxy podcast. I'm your host, Eric Hernandez. As always, we got to talk about our 0-0 draw against the Seattle Sounders that happened this Sunday. A game where we just, probably not the best performance you could say from the Galaxy, but a point on the road and against a Seattle team isn't the bad thing, to take from that game. So we're going to talk about that game, all our thoughts, our opinions about the match. Of course, we're going to talk about, some players coming back, Greg Vanney not having a shirt in this game, all the good stuff that you just want to hear from this game. So we're going to talk about that. And of course, we have a preview of RSL, which is this Saturday at home, our first home game in 3 weeks. So yeah, it's been a while since we had a home game. So we're going to preview that. And should be a good episode, should be a good conversation. And of course, with me, as always, is my co-host, LA Galaxy Central. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's good to have my wifey be back here. I will say, though, the couch was a lot more comfortable than this chair, but still, it's good to have my Wi-Fi back. I just got done watching the Real Madrid versus Bayern Munich game, which was a crazy game. Real Madrid just continues to be inevitable in the final minutes of the game. Like we saw against Man City a few years ago, and then we saw against Bayern today. When they get to stoppage time, they always find a way to win, which is crazy. The saying goes around that if you put a Real Madrid jersey on a dead person's body, they would come back to life. And honestly, I have a hard time disagreeing with that, with the way they play. So that was fun to watch. And yeah, it's good to be here right now, and I'm ready to get started.
Yeah, I mean, definitely Real Madrid just, there's a reason why they're like the best club ever in history. And whether you're a Madrid fan or not, you can't deny that whatever they've done throughout their entire history has just worked. So it's like Real Madrid has, they're always inevitable, right? They're always going to be there no matter what. So it's crazy to think that they're going into another Champions League final, but at the same time, it's not that crazy because they're Real Madrid. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I didn't get to see the game, but I heard there was some crazy stuff from that game. And of course, there wasn't, that game was pretty crazy, but the game that we had on Sunday wasn't as crazy as that game, didn't have as much excitement as that game. And, I guess it is different because one's a regular season game, the other one's a semifinal. But regardless, I mean, you can't compare the two is what I'm trying to say. So I guess, let's dive into the 0-0 draw. And like I said, we went to Seattle, we get a 0-0 draw. A game where, again, like I said, just not the best performance from the Galaxy. It wasn't the prettiest, but at the same time, you get a point on the road and coming off of a loss as well. So at least there was a little bit of a bounce back in this game, or I guess for the team mentally. You had no Ricky Puig in this game, no Dejan Jovic in this game, no Martin Caceres. You didn't have no Mark Delgado either, which was, that's something that we learned on game day. So you had a lot of players that weren't available in this game, and you still managed to get a tie. So there is a positive to this game, but I mean, in terms of the performance and I guess in terms of the game in general, how'd you feel about the game? What were your thoughts? And yeah, I mean, break it down for me.
Yeah, it was definitely a very tough game. Obviously, you saw on the field a lot of quality was lacking, as you would expect with some of the players we had out. But we were going on the road against Seattle, who on Tuesday scored 3 goals against Philadelphia midweek. A couple of weeks ago, Seattle scored 5 goals at home against CF Montreal, so they were starting to play better a little bit. And then we're going on the road, coming after a loss too. I think the goal for this game was just to get anything out of the game, no matter how it came. We didn't have to put in the prettiest performance. We weren't expecting this great performance, and we saw that the game kind of went how I expected. But, we just managed moments of the game. We picked and chose our chances to go forward. I think we managed the game pretty well. Obviously, it was very difficult to watch because we just didn't create a lot, and you saw we were struggling most of the game. But ultimately, as you got closer to the final whistle, we were playing for a point at a certain point of the match. And I think it was a good point to get. It feels like a valuable point to get. I think it's a point that many other Galaxy teams in the past definitely might have let slip away, and maybe they would have lost the game. The fact that we got a point away from home is good. I think everyone was looking for a response, and a response doesn't always mean a really dominant good win. A response after a loss could even mean something like that, where you just get a 0-0 tie on the road and you're just not on a losing streak anymore. So, I mean, that's good. And then coming back home, I think we have a lot more expectations. So you got to take the tie. You got to be happy with it. Obviously, had our backs against the wall that entire game. We were not favored throughout the whole match. We knew the circumstances weren't very good. But we went in there, we competed. We did some things well. We got out of there with a point. You can't be too mad at it.
No, I mean, you can't be too mad at it. And we talk about a response, right? And like you said, a response doesn't mean that it has to be a dominant win. This was a good response, and especially with the fact of how many players were not available in this game. If this was a team that was, where we had all our players available, or maybe one player was just missing, then maybe, yes, I would understand. Like, there would be a little bit more, I guess, like a little more, maybe not disappointment, but at least just like, oh, maybe we could have done a bit more. But considering the fact that we didn't have all our players, considering the fact that, one of those players was, like, for example, Jalen Neal, that was his first game in who knows how long already, and like, about like 9-10 months already. So like for him, that was his first game, and again, missing players. So at the same time, you're like, okay, well, like, we don't have all our players and we still managed to get a draw. Like, and so you're saying, okay, like, that's not a bad thing. That's a good response from the team and they dealt with the adversity, right? We've talked about this team trying to go have that resilience, go through the adversity, just try to get a result no matter how they can, and they did, and we even said it, going into this game, if they got a tie, like, I don't think we would have been mad at this, and we're not, it's not the end of the world. You get a valuable point on the road, and yeah, I mean, this game, which we'll talk about, later in the preview, is going to be a much more important game, a game where we actually have to have all our players, and everybody needs to step up, and think that's a more, like you said, and put all our eggs in the basket type of game. So yeah, that's going to be interesting how that goes. But in terms of this game, yeah, I mean, not that bad, for sure. But of course, I mean, that was, I guess, the overall positive of this game. But did you feel anything that like, obviously, I guess, like, one of the big things that was lacking was, I guess, just offense. We really didn't create that much offense in this game. You had Miguel Berry starting up top. We know that's not going to give us much there. But I mean, was there anything that you saw in this game where you're like, okay, the Galaxy didn't do well in this sort of circumstance, or like, do you think was like a negative through this game?
Yeah, I mean, just about the offense in general, it's really concerning how this offense looks just without Ricky Pooch. Like, I understand it's not going to be as good without him. Obviously, if he's not on the team in the first place, this is probably not the type of signings we would have made. But the fact that it looks this bad without him, I think it's very concerning, and I think you have to be very critical of the DPs and the way they play too. Because when a DP goes down like a number one option like Ricky Pooch is, it's on the other guys to step up. And still, like, on the field, we had like $18 million worth of wingers on the field. With them combined, they're about like $9-10 million transfers. You put them together, maybe $18 million worth of players. Did you really see that with these players in that game, or even against Austin? Not really. I wanted Joseph Pansel to step up, sort of have that more aggressive mentality to become a goal scorer. Did we see that? Not really. I guess Peck, you could say he did try, but did he really do much? Not really. He had a lot of shots that were off target. He got in some decent positions, but there was no final end product. I would just say in general, like, the DPs were kind of disappointing. Like, yeah, if Ricky Pooch goes down, now it's on you guys as our designated players to step up and play a bigger role, and it's almost like they didn't do that.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the DPs, like, I agree in the fact that, that Gabriel Peck, Joseph Painstill, you wanted to see a little bit more without Ricky Pooch, and I think, yeah, like, I mean, when you're paying a lot of money for those guys, you kind of expect them to, be those difference makers, even whenever, one of your DPs isn't there, whether, they're not having a good day or injury or whatever the case may be, right? So, yeah, I mean, I do hopefully, I wanted to see them step up, but also at the same time, I think without also not having Ricky Pooch, I also feel like Mark Delgado not being there kind of messed up the offense, because I feel like Mark Delgado, does everything right, also contributes a lot to the build-up into that offense. So I think not having two key players in that midfield also just in general did not help the offense whatsoever. And of course, yeah, you had Diego Fagundes in there, which I think he played a solid game, but at the same time, when you don't have Mark Delgado and you don't have the chemistry with him and Ricky Pooch, and that just kind of messes everything up in a sense, right? But yeah, I mean, offensively, it just wasn't there for the team. I mean, I don't know, it just wasn't there for the team, and I guess you kind of did expect something, but at the same time, it was just like, I don't know, just wasn't their day, and without some of those pieces, that kind of really messed everything up in a sense. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, obviously offense was good. I mean, how did you feel about the defense, I guess, in this game? Because, I mean, the defense just, again, a shutout in a sense. We got to see some players, step up in here. And I guess, I mean, another good thing was that defense just in general. We got some saves in there. So, I mean, are you at least, in general happy with the defensive performance? The fact that, we managed to get a shutout in this game?
Yeah, of course, the shutout is always good. But just like last week against Austin, though, last week we gave Austin a lot of credit how they played well against us compared to our bad performance. We just gave Austin a lot of credit. Well, I think you kind of have to do it on the opposite end too in terms of our defense. Like I think you also have to blame Seattle on some of the chances they missed instead of just giving all the credit to our defense because man, Seattle missed some real opportunities. Not only this game, but also in the first time they played us. There's a reason we only have 2 clean sheets all year, and they're both against the Seattle Sounders. It really does speak a lot to their finishing ability when you saw that Jordan Morris chance in the first time we played him, and then that Leo Chu chance in the second time we played him when he was just, wide open from about 8 yards out, and then the ball was on his favorite foot, and he just skies it over the net, and anywhere on target, that's the goal. I mean, you could say, yes, the shutout's good. It's good the defense, made some good plays. They did some things well. But also, Seattle just missed a lot of chances. You also got to blame them, just like you credited Austin last week, because we could have easily conceded in that game. And against, even an average offense, I think we are conceding at least a minimum 1 or 2 goals.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I would, agree with that as well, because it's just Seattle, didn't have the best game either. And I think, overall, if you look at, the game and for both sides, if you're a Seattle fan and just, if you're a Seattle player or just in general, you're pretty disappointed in this result, right? You would have to be disappointed in the fact that, there was maybe not a depleted Galaxy team, but a Galaxy team that didn't have all their players, a team that always struggles in Seattle and in general the Pacific Northwest. Everything was in favor for Seattle going into this game. And if you're Seattle looking at this game, you have to be pretty disappointed about it, don't you think? I think this was even if this was if the roles were reversed, I think I would be disappointed as a Galaxy fan if the roles were reversed. But yeah, if you're Seattle, you're pretty disappointed in this result overall, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely, easily.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, for Seattle, it's just this was probably more of a loss to them than it was just a tie. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess they didn't really have a good game either, and I forget who one of the Roldan brothers wasn't available for this game. I can't remember if it was Christian or Alex, but one of the Roldan brothers was Alex. Okay, yeah, so Alex Roldan wasn't available in this game, so you had one player for them out. I mean, Stefan Fry could have been out, but then he got his red card reinstated, so he was available for this game. So it's just yeah, I mean, Seattle had all the, I guess that much more of a bigger advantage to go into this game, to win this game. But, for them, it's, that's pretty disappointing from them. But yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree with the defense. It probably wasn't necessarily their performance. It was also just the fact that, Seattle just didn't really have the chances either. So I guess both teams played in a sense sort of the same, but at the same time, the result is much different for both teams, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, obviously, I think it's a lot better for us because, everything you said, we were on the road. We never do well in Seattle. We were missing 4 players. Seattle just came off a really good result in Philadelphia. Even then, Seattle was starting to play better just overall. They got a 5-0 win at home a few weeks ago. They were just starting to play better overall. And for them coming home to not be able to beat us with all those guys out, and when they're pretty much dominant over us anyways most of the time, I think is a massive disappointment for them when you look at the chances they had compared to us, where we kind of knew going into this game the quality on the field was not going to be very high, and just getting anything from this game, was probably very much tolerable for us considering what was at hand. So I think, with us coming out of that 0-0, I think it's a very good result for us.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel like a good result just in general. Very valuable point in this game, in general. How'd you feel about Greg Vanney's, tan shirt that everybody thought that everybody thought he was shirtless? I just had to bring that up real quick, just because, that was just a funny thing seeing on Twitter. Because it was funny, because I was at work watching this game, and then I just saw a message from one of the group chats. It's why is Vanney shirtless? And I was thinking what the hell? Why is he shirtless? And I thought he was completely shirt off, nothing on top of him and stuff like that. But, just completely showing the bod. I was like, damn, he's really putting out a statement like that. But no, I saw his tan shirt that everybody thought he was shirtless. But I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny with the whole tan shirt, situation that people thought he was, shirtless. But anyways, just out of a sidetrack, any other points you want to talk about this game, or anything that you felt was important coming out of this game?
Yeah, Greg Vanney wearing a tan shirt in Seattle of all places probably doesn't really make much sense, right? I don't think he was going to get a tan on that day with that cloudy gray weather, but still, I mean, it was kind of funny to see for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, made its way around X and the internet. So I thought that was, really funny about the whole shirt. But, yeah, I don't know, just weird combination for sure. But Yeah. Do you want to talk about the players, or do you have any other points you want to, talk about before we get into that?
I mean, we can talk about the players a little more, but we went through a lot of them already.
Oh, well, that's true. I guess we kind of did talk about it, but I guess there was some players we still haven't talked about. But yeah, I mean, let's just talk about the players, I guess, right now. So let's go with the defense. Defense, you obviously had John McCarthy at goal. You had Mickey Yamane at right back, Julian Aude as your left back. Your center backs, you got to see Jalen Neal come back. Of course, Maya Yoshida was your captain in this lineup, and leading that back line. But one change in the defense. But I know we already talked about a little bit just in general about the defense. But how'd you feel about? I mean, some of the individual performances. How'd you feel about Jalen Neal coming back? Because I guess that was a big topic of conversation. But how'd you feel about some of the individual performances in that defense?
Yeah, I'll just talk about the players. I'll start with the left side, go to the right. Julian Alde was really good. And again, he's just so inconsistent for the Galaxy. I think that's the problem with him so far this season. Like, you can obviously tell he has talent when he plays. He shows a lot of good moments, but just throughout the course of the whole season, it's been one good game, one bad game, two good games, three bad games, one good game, a bad game. Like, that's kind of how he's been all season. But luckily, this game, when I think a lot of our attention was focused on defense, because we had a hard time going forward and creating opportunities, Julian Alde played really well, and I was very happy with it. Yoshida played all right. I think, he made a couple of mistakes, maybe could have been a little better, but wasn't too bad. Jalen Neal was a really big positive. It was good to see him back. I was surprised he started on the road in Seattle on the turf. When he hasn't really had much of a preseason, much of an offseason, I think that was kind of really pushing him. But apparently he was able to handle it, and he made a lot of really important defensive plays. Also, something that was noteworthy that a lot of people talked about was 12 corner kicks, against us. We didn't concede a single one, obviously, in a 0-0 game. That was really good. I think Jalen Neal definitely made a big difference there, and that was really good to see, and hopefully he can help in that department just in general. I think Yamane had a really good game. He was, one of our positive players on the day. And McCarthy came up with the saves he needed to make. He came up with a couple good saves, but I will say again, like, his distribution is just really bad. And it almost cost us the goal when he turned it over to Rui Diaz. And even through a lot of the game, he just played it out of bounds to the other team. Like, I wasn't sure about McCarthy, like, when he first came here, about his distribution or how much of a problem it would be. But, like, definitely the reason he still has the starting job right now is because his shot-stopping ability is really good. And that's something, obviously, you need in a goalkeeper, but his distribution just has to get way better, especially for this team.
Yeah, I mean, definitely for McCarthy. Like, that's just always the big thing about him. It's like, not a bad goalkeeper. I think he's leading, or not in leading the league in saves, but is in the top portion of that.
Two.
He's number 2. There you go. He's number 2 in the saves category. So you're happy to see that, from John McCarthy. But yeah, I mean, the distribution's just got to be a lot better. I think there's just way too many balls that go out of bounds, or just turns over in a sense. But yeah, I mean, John McCarthy got to figured that out in a hopefully sooner or later. But yeah, I mean, defense, of course, you talk about Julian Aude was, again, probably the big bright spot, from that defense, playing a very good game. And yeah, I mean, you talk about the inconsistency is just like, I don't know. It's like, you can see the talent, like you said, you can see that he has the promise and the potential, but at the same time, it's just a matter of consistency, trying to get, have those games, every week, or like not every week, because obviously you're going to have off days, but just, at least just more as consistently as you can be. Yeah, of course, Mickey Yamane had a very good game. Yoshida, played very solid as well. And then Jalen Neal, I mean, again, another bright spot in this defense who, played in this game on the road in Seattle on turf, which is, I thought going into this game, we even said, like, I don't know if that's the best idea, putting Jalen Neal on turf, but played the game, played the full 90, I believe, as well. So it's like, Jalen Neal stepped up in a situation where, we didn't think that, he probably shouldn't have played the game, but you know what? He played very well, had a couple good clearances in this game as well. So yeah, it's good to see Jalen Neal back on the defense, and to see that, where it leads, I guess, going into the season. Of course, hopefully, I guess, been saying, like, hopefully it's like, slowly build him in here. We kind of threw him into the fire in this one, responded well, but at the same time, like, hopefully we kind of still, in a sense, don't push him too much for the Galaxy, or like at least the season. But yeah, Jalen Neal, it's a good sight to see. Obviously, Caceres was on the bench in this game. We didn't get to see him come in this game, which we thought, maybe he should have had the start, or maybe he should have played, which I thought it was interesting that he didn't play a single minute. But hey, it is what it is. Maybe he gets his opportunity against RSL. But overall, I think the defense played, solid. Did what they needed to do. But hopefully, that clean sheet, helps them, going into next week.
So I'll say one more thing about the defense, though. You got to give Martin Caceres a lot of credit because, these first, 1 to 10 weeks, we definitely needed a center back to step up because Jalen Neal was out injured. Garces, and I'm having a hard time saying that Caceres and Garces, I'm kind of having, mixed words with that, which is kind of funny. But yeah, you got to give Martin Caceres a lot of credit. I got to work on that one, but you got to give him a lot of credit because we really needed a center back to step up those first couple of weeks. And from week 1 to week 10, he really came in here coming off a big injury and he was ready to go. But then you can kind of see these last couple of weeks, his body's starting to wear down a little bit. But the good thing is when Martin Caceres held it down, we got Jalen Neal back into the team, which is really good. And then we got Garces back into the team now, or not back into the team, but we got him integrated into the team, you should say. You were supposed to get him a full week of training this week. So the fact that he held it down and now Caceres can get a little bit of a break and now allow maybe Neal and Garces to come back, I think that is really good. Man, but try saying Caceres and Garces 5 times as fast as you can. You should try that right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, try to say that five times fast. Caceres. Yeah, I don't know. It's very difficult. But it's going to be a bit confusing for sure when it comes to those two. But yeah, I mean, obviously Martin Caceres, didn't play this game. In fact, last week we even saw that he was in like a hospital bed or whatever. We thought, what the hell is happening? Apparently he just had some sort of procedure that's going to help him, I guess recover, or at least from what I saw or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was nothing where it was he needed surgery or he was out for a certain amount of time. It was just something that was going to help him for the long run of the season. So that's a good thing to hear and see, I guess, because that was a kind of a, concerning, the fact that he was in a, in hospital gowns and on a bed. So, if that was going to be, we were just interested to see what was that all about. And, now we know. But, I mean, of course, he's, credit to him for just being that guy to step up in these first, 10 plus games. And yeah, of course, now we're going to have to see when Garces gets, integrated into the team, and hopefully, that's probably this week. But yeah, I mean, of course, credit to Martin, and hopefully he recovers soon and, he's at least, on the bench and available at some point.
What I was trying to say about Martinez, it's really good he stepped up these first 1 to 10 weeks because he allowed Jalen Neal to make the full recovery from his injury. He allowed Garces to come into the team, get his visa work, get it done, and we still got results with him. So by Caceres stepping up, it really allowed our center backs to come into the team, and you got to give him a lot of credit there because he kind of held the defense down the first 10 weeks of the season. But I think going forward for the rest of the season, I don't think Caceres is going to be much of a starter for us. I think it's going to be a battle either between Neal or Garces for that starting spot next to Yoshida, because when you look at our defense, pretty much all of it, for me at least, seems set. Julian Alda is going to be our number 1 left back for the remainder of the year. I think Yoshida, he's our captain, I think, and he looks like a guy that can just naturally play longer. I think he's going to play a while. You look at, that other center back spot, that one's a lot open between Jalen Neal and Carlos Garces. That one's going to be kind of open. And you have Mickey Yamane, who's your starting right back. And you have McCarthy, which, yeah, I think he's our starting keeper, but maybe that spot could be a little bit open if his shot stopping ability falls off, because his distribution isn't good. But still, it's just that one center back spot next to Yoshida. I think it's going to be a very interesting battle between Garces and Neal going forward. But it's good Caceres at least held it down the first 10 weeks when we needed to get these guys back into the team, or into the team in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, and last week we were talking about depth, right? We were talking about that the Galaxy have, I guess, a quote unquote depth issue, but at the same time they don't really have it. They don't have a depth issue in the defense. That's part of it, is what I'll say. Because I think your center backs are very, very much set. I think left back is very much set with Alde and Nelson. Right back is probably the only position where you can say, hey, is Cuevas really the number 2 guy, or is he really going to be, are you confident with him being the number 2 guy? So that's probably the only concerning part of the defense. Goalkeeper, it's yeah, McCarthy could be a concern at some point, but I think also they had said that there was going to be a point where they would integrate Mikovic, giving him some starts this season. Who knows when that'll be? But at the same time, for goalkeeper, you're at least a little confident right now. We'll see how it is, in the long run. But defensively, I don't think there's really much of a depth issue. I don't think there's really much of that, and I think we're basically set with the defense. And maybe it can improve on the field, play wise. But I think when you're in terms of the availability and the players that you have, I think we're basically set. And yeah, that one center back spot is going to be interesting to see who wins that spot, whether it's Neil, whether it's Garces, or who knows, maybe at some point, they put both of those guys in, right? Have those two young guys in the middle and see what they can do, in some games this season. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, in terms of the defense, it's just like, yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we're set for the most part, and again, that could change later on. But as of right now, you're at least set with what we have right now for sure.
I mean, that Neil Garces duo could be a thing going forward, and I do like the idea of that somewhat because I think they could complement each other well. But for this season, I don't think the Galaxy are going to bench Yoshida when he's available. After all, they did make him our captain for a reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's going to be hard to really make that duo a thing. Like I said, like if maybe there's a midweek game and you want to give Yoshida, the rest, I think that's probably when you're going to see that duo. But like as of right now, it's like, yeah, Yoshida's going to be your captain. And like you said, like we made him our captain for a reason. So like, we hope he's available for, most of these games this year. But yeah, I mean, of course, but an interesting thing though, is like, I think this season, like, for example, Yoshida, I think his contract is up. So it's like, that's going to be interesting, topic in the off season, which is, way ahead, which, we'll get into that conversation when it happens. But at least, when you look at the contract and maybe things like that, you're saying like, hey, you got two young center backs now. That's going to be, we'll see what that could lead into the future, maybe into next season and maybe to even more seasons. But again, that's like a whole different conversation, that we have to have later. But, at least, as of right now, you're at least confident with Yoshida and the potential of having those two young center backs for the future.
Who do you think is going to win the duel, Neil or Garces? It's very interesting for sure.
I think you would probably put Caceres right now because he's healthy. He's been playing, with, when he was with Deportivo Pereira, and Neil is still coming off an injury. But at the same time, you want Neil to be that guy for the defense. And I think the Galaxy have been trying to make Neil the guy for the defense and, build him to, to lead this team at some point. Right. So I think you're still wanting to work on the Jalen Neal project and make him, that guy in a sense, if you get what I'm saying. But, it's just like you want him to be, they're still trying to work on that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do, and I feel like next week we're going to run back the same defense because we kept a clean sheet, which makes enough sense. So at least for next week, Jalen Neal's probably going to get the start again next to Yoshida, I'm imagining.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think he earned it, to be honest, because like I said, he played 90 minutes. He played a solid game for coming back off an injury. It's like he deserves to play, this Saturday against RSL. So yeah, he definitely deserves the start, for sure. But hopefully, that. Again, hopefully there's no other setbacks or anything like that, but he definitely deserves this to get the start this Saturday. But yeah, any other things you want to say about the defense, or should we move on?
Yeah, we're getting somewhat close to the summertime, and that's when you said you would hope to see Julian break out as a full-time starter and hopefully become more consistent. So he just had a good performance. Hopefully he can build off that eventually and really kind of reach his full potential and try to get more consistent performances going like we saw last game.
Yeah, hopefully this one is the one that starts it with the consistency. Who knows? But yeah. I mean, obviously, Julian Aude, like now I'm starting to have a little. I know because last season I was kind of like, is Julian Aude ready to be that guy? And I know you were the guy who was like vouching for him like every single week. Which again, the potential's there, the talent's there. I'm not giving up on him or anything, but hopefully now we see the consistency from Julian Aude, and in terms of Jalen Neal as well, hopefully. Again, he starts playing more and he starts balling out too. So hopefully that's another thing for the defense. All right, so let's move on into the midfield. Of course, like we mentioned before, you had no Ricky Puig, no Mark Delgado. So you had Gaston Brugman, you had Edwin Cerrillo, and Diego Fagundes in your midfield. With two big players out, obviously it was a lot more different. Probably weren't as creative as we have with Ricky Puig or Mark Delgado. But how did you feel about the midfield overall, just without them in general?
I feel like the midfield did pretty solid. We brought Edwin Cedillo into the mix, and I think he did a really good job, a player that I really appreciate. He can play many different positions, and I think that's a really good thing. He can play many different aspects of the game and find many different ways to help this team out, which is really good about him, so I think he did a good job. Brugman was asked to play a different role, and I think it was kind of a strange position for him, but he still did well based on what he was asked to do. I think he played a pretty good game. And Diego Fagundes, obviously he's not Ricky Puig. I don't think he did too much throughout the match, but you could say he had a decent performance. He just played fine. But overall, I think the midfield was good enough. Just kind of just like the defense. I think the defense was a little better, but the midfield still did their job. They did what they needed to do, and they ultimately, helped the defense a little bit. And they forced a little bit of turnovers. They tried to get the attack going. But yeah, the midfield, I'd say they did their job. They did a fairly good job in that game. Not too bad.
Yeah, I mean, midfield didn't do too bad for what they were asked to do. And of course, without, Ricky Puig and Mark Delgado. And like you said, like some of those guys maybe aren't, Diego Fagundes isn't Ricky Puig or anything like that. Or, Edwin Cerrillo probably doesn't do everything like Mark Delgado. But at the same time, for what you were asking them to do, they played very well. Of course, Edwin Cerrillo has been, this season has been playing, in all sorts of different positions, wherever it needs. And he's been, succeeding in, for the most part, whenever he's been called up to play those positions. So, Edwin Cerrillo, again, good game. Gaston, played good as well. And yeah, I mean, Diego Fagundes played a solid game in my opinion. So in general, I guess the midfield just did what they were, asked to do. And I guess they didn't really, lose you the game or anything like that, or didn't lose in turnovers or anything. So, yeah, I guess you can say the defense overall was solid and you can't be too mad about it, I guess. Yeah.
I mean the midfield, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, midfield. Sorry about that. But anyways, any other things you want to say about the midfield before we move on?
No, not too much. Obviously, a little bit of a lack of penetration going forward. I think our game plan overall was to kind of just manage the game a little more, not really try to push as many attacks. So it was definitely more defensive, but still, I liked what they see, and I think we made some good adjustments throughout the whole game through the midfield.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Yeah, so I mean, midfield just played a solid game just in general. But let's talk about the offense now, which again, you had your two DPs in there. You had Painstill, you had Gabriel Peck, and then you had Miguel Berry being the one to be your striker again in this week. So, yeah, I mean, we talked about it already before. Offense didn't look that great. Some of those DPs didn't necessarily step up, but I mean, just in general, I mean, I guess just to say it again, how'd you feel about the offense? What were your thoughts about it? And yeah, I mean, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I couldn't really tell. There was two DPs out on the field. Both of them didn't really play that well throughout the whole match, especially Joseph Painstill in that first half. I mean, he was basically invisible. He didn't really do anything for us, which I would say, again, is kind of disappointing. I think he's the guy we were all looking to be that number one goal-scoring option if a guy like Puig was out or Jovic is out, and he just hasn't done that through these two games, so that's unfortunate. Peck, was kind of having a hard time trying to get anything going. Had a couple of good positions, had a couple of shots. None of them were really on target or really that threatening to the goalkeeper. So, I mean, couldn't really tell there was two DPs on the field, and Miguel Berry. I'm not just going to blame Miguel Berry because we know what he has to offer. He's not supposed to play like a DP player. So I'm going to blame the DPs a little more for not stepping up. But Miguel Berry is just, not good enough for this team, not good enough for this league. We're going to keep waiting for that backup striker to come in, hopefully in the summertime. But as long as Jovic is out, I mean, you don't really have any other options. I know some people said they wanted to see B-Boot, but let's be realistic. Would that make much of a difference? Very likely not. I mean, B-Boot's like, 18, 19 years old. So, I mean, you can't even expect him to make a difference right now. So overall, just offense, very dead game. Not a lot of service, not a lot of ambition offensively either, which, I mean, I guess was fine at a certain point, but you would have liked to see him maybe create just a little more, try to get one goal in that match, but they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, I think Miguel Berry was the only one out of that offense who had a shot on target. So, I mean, there was something, I guess, good for him, but at the end of the day, did it really matter? Did it really contribute to anything? No, it didn't. But, yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, the DPs just wasn't their day. They didn't step up like we were hoping that they would step up. And, yeah, I mean, again, going back to Miguel Berry, it's not entirely his fault for the position that he's been put at, but at the same time, he's just not the guy to be your second striker. We've been mentioning this all season long, and he's been the topic of conversation week in, week out when it comes to that offense, at least whenever he plays. So, I mean, yeah, it is what it is for Miguel Berry, but I mean, yes, this is probably more on the DPs because you wanted them to step up. You wanted them to be, I guess the ones who really gave us offense, but you didn't really see that with them. I guess Gabriel Peck was the only one who did have some chances, but again, really didn't contribute to anything with those chances. So it is disappointing with the offense overall, but hey, you know what? I guess it is, an off day for them. You didn't have Ricky Puig to feed you those balls. You didn't have Mark Delgado either or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it just wasn't their day for the DPs, but a little concerning that, in these situations, you want them to step up when, you don't have a Ricky Puig available. But yeah, I mean, I guess it is what it is for the offense.
I mean, yeah, they're DP, right? We paid like $18 million combined for the both of them, and when one of our DPs are out or our main striker is out, like, yes, obviously when your center attacking midfielder and striker are out, your attack is going to look a lot worse, but still that calls for people to step up, and the guys you look to step up are these two guys, and did they do that? Well, no, they did not, so that's kind of disappointing, but hopefully, next week when we get hopefully just about everybody back, hopefully they can have a better game.
Yeah, hopefully, and we're gonna need them to, play their best game against RSL, right? So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we're gonna need them to step up at least there. But, yeah, I mean, any other points you want to say about the offense before we move on?
No, I think that'll do it. Just not a very good day overall.
Yeah, definitely for sure. Anything off the benches? I mean, nothing really too much that came off the benches, but anything that you saw from the subs?
Maybe not off the bench, but I will give Greg Vanney and the coaching staff a lot of credit because I think they managed this game really well. Like at a certain point, they recognized, hey, we can just play for the 0-0. We're going to sit back a little more. I also think they did a good job of at least creating attacking outlets for us. Like they weren't just parking the bus the whole game. They did create opportunities for Peck and Paintsel to go in behind or for Fagundes to get on the ball. Obviously, Fagundes had that one shot that Stefan Frei made a pretty decent save against, so there was that. So it's not like the Galaxy just parked the bus the whole game. They tried to create outlets, but at a certain point, there was game management where we just had to kind of put everybody back and just get out of there with the point. So I give the coaching staff a lot of credit. I think this game, they really managed the team really well for what we had at stake here.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily the players who came on. It was just, I guess, the decision making, right? Which is something that we've, I guess, kind of always give Vanney, criticism or things like that, like some of his decision making. But yeah, I mean, this game, when you look at it, yeah, there were some moments where we were trying to create outlets, trying to get the goal, but obviously, our offense just wasn't there completely. But yeah, there was a point where you just had to grind it out to the end of the game, get that 0-0, and then get the draw. And yeah, I mean, obviously as a coach and as a, I guess just in general, the coaching staff, you have to realize when those moments are going to have to come. So yeah, I mean, I guess it was great for them to recognize that, yeah, you just have to grind it out at some point and get that 0-0 draw. And like we've mentioned before, this wasn't a bad result in any means. A draw on the road against Seattle with a depleted, I guess you could say, team is not a bad result at all. So I guess it was good that we didn't do anything to jeopardize, that draw or get the loss like we've had. And, I guess if you want to compare it to like last season or anything like that,
Yeah, we can see it off a throne, right? That was really bad.
Yeah, that was terrible. I'd forgot about that until like when I was making the reel last week talking about the Seattle game. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that we, lost in the last minute off a throw-in, which was terrible. But luckily that didn't happen this game, so you got to be happy about that.
Yeah, 12 set pieces too. Like we talked about set pieces being a major problem all season. To have 12 set pieces against us and not a single goal go in, I think that's a really good sign too.
It's progress. It's progress. So I mean, at least you got to see that, right? So there wasn't completely bad things from this game, and like we said, there were some positives, whether some people see it or not. But yeah, I mean, of course, those 12 corner kicks, yeah, we didn't concede on any, so which is very, very surprising. So hopefully, that keeps up as well. But again, maybe not the best performances, but some small things that we saw from this game where you're not too mad about, or you're at least a little happy about, right? But anyways, so I guess that's going to be it for the recap, unless you had any other points you wanted to take before we move on.
Yeah, definitely a very positive point in Seattle overall. Like I just consider the game more of a positive considering what we were up against, the circumstances of who we had out, the opponent we were playing against. I think you have to view a tie as definitely a very positive result.
Yeah, definitely. I don't, again, not a bad result at all to get a point on the road. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if this necessarily motivates the team, but at least this gives them at least a little more confidence going into RSL, knowing that you're going to have those pieces back in, and you're not going to be, I guess in a sense at some point fighting for your life to get the tie, right? So that's a good thing, and I think the team will be at least a little more confident going into this week. So yeah, I mean, not a bad result. And like we've said before, sometimes signs of a good team could be that, like, if you don't have the best performance but still get a result, that's a sign of a good team. So at least we've seen that, not only within just this game but other games too in the season. So this is another sign saying like, hey, maybe this team could be a lot better going into the head of the season. But yeah, definitely for sure a good result, a valuable point, for the season. And yeah, we just move on into into the next game against RSL. Yeah. But anyways, yeah. So that's going to be the recap. Against Seattle, 0-0 draw. We'll take the point. But anyways, so we'll go into our preview. I don't think there was really much Galaxy news going into the week or anything like that. So, I mean, I guess we'll just talk about the preview. I don't know how Ventura County did this week. Did you know how they did this week? And maybe they performed well?
They had a bye week, I believe.
Oh, they had a bye week. So there you go. We can't even talk about Ventura County. So there you go. Which, by the way, I think their next game or like the couple games is going to be their first game up in Ventura County. So that's going to be interesting. I think they're already selling tickets for that. But anyways, I guess we'll go into the preview against RSL. So let's talk about that. RSL right now, first in the Western Conference. Right now they've been playing great soccer, great football, whatever you want to call it, this season. Obviously, Chicho Arango has been, an MVP caliber player. They have, a young star in Diego Luna on that team. A lot of good pieces in RSL. A team that whenever you go up into RSL, I know we're playing them at home, but again, for just in general, for teams going up there, it's difficult. And I guess on the road, they've been also pretty good. I know they beat Philadelphia not like a couple weeks ago on the road. So they've been a very good team this season, and a team that is going to contend for the Supporters' Shield, a team that's going to contend for first in the Western Conference, at least right now as we're seeing them this season. But how do you feel about going up against RSL at home, and what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, obviously RSL is a very good opponent. They have a very good system, a very good coach, very good players. Just all around right now, they're in a very good place as a team right now. It's going to be very tough. But again, we're coming back home. I think we have a lot more expectations now. Ricky Puig is coming back, which is obviously massive. Greg Vanney said in his press conference at Seattle he expects Joveljic to be back, which is obviously huge with the way he's been playing this season. Mark Delgado is back in training right now, so that should be good. Garcia's got a full week of training now, so he can come back into the team. I think there's a lot more expectation too. And like we saw versus Vancouver, it's another chance to make a statement. Remember a few weeks ago when we were playing Vancouver, they were also the number one team in the West, and that was away from home. They were really tough, and we go up there and we beat them 3-1. We viewed that as a massive success. Well, coming back at home too, we're going to want to have another one of these statement games where we play really well against the top team and hopefully come out of there with a win. I think we do need a win because our next two games are on the road, including a midweek game. So I think we have to come back at home, take the full 3 points, build off this clean sheet against Seattle. And you mentioned earlier, like, would this motivate the team, the fact that they got a clean sheet in Seattle? I would say absolutely yes, because, a clean sheet has been not something that's been very common this year. Obviously, we only have 2 of them against the same opponent, but a clean sheet should be motivating going into the next game because we've gotten so many goals this year from our offense. Like, we know our offense can score when it's fully healthy. We've seen them score 3+ goals many times. So if we can have that confidence, we can get a clean sheet, and we know on our day our offense can be so much better than it was with some pieces coming back into here. I feel like we have a shot. We definitely have a shot for sure. It's going to be a very tough game. Another chance to make a statement against one of the top teams in the West, but we're at home. We got to defend our home, take advantage of our one home game before we go back on the road for another week, including a midweek game. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one for sure, but hopefully we come out on top of that one.
Yeah, I mean, definitely RSL is going to be a pretty big challenge. And I think the difference, because you kind of compared it to the Vancouver game, a few weeks ago, I think the difference is that, people still kind of had their doubts a little bit with Vancouver, and maybe like, are they going to be a team that's going to contend for the first place and things like that. Even when we had, Alex on that week, he even said like that was going to be a good test for them to see if they're legit. We end up beating them 3-1, and that was a good performance for the Galaxy. But I think this is different in the sense that RSL looks like the team that could compete for a Western Conference, looks like a team that could go and compete for a Supporters' Shield, right? So I think this will be even more of a bigger statement in a sense for the Galaxy if they beat RSL, because they've just been playing so great at home, on the road. They're a team that's going to be there. And so I think, for them, they're going to have their pieces. I'm pretty sure RSL is going to have their pieces, be as healthy, as they can be. And going into that game, it's going to be a battle. It's not going to be an easy one. And no game is really easy, but it's not going to be a game where you're expected to win or there's a great chance for a favorite or anything like that. Like, it's going to be a very close game. Hopefully it's a close game for this week. And yeah, I mean, we just got to show up on this one. And again, it's at home, in front of our fans. We know that that's important for us, and we want to make it a fortress. We've been undefeated so far this season, and so we gotta keep it that way, right? So yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a crucial game for sure. And RSL has the players to compete, and they have the just everything they can to compete, right? So we just got to show them who wants it more, and for the Galaxy, they got to go in wanting it more against the RSL team like this one.
Yeah, RSL is unbeaten in their last 7 games, and they've been playing really well in general. They're going to be a very tough opponent. They've always been a tough opponent where they play really hard, this really gritty style of play. They really get into you, try to put it to you. That's kind of just the type of team they are, and that's no different now. The only difference is right now is they have a lot of higher quality players than they had in previous seasons. They got a new ownership group. They've done a really good job. So just overall, it's a really good team. They're 2 points ahead of us right now, so that's also a big deal. If we win, we go a point ahead of them. But if they win, they go 5 points clear of us. So it is kind of a big swing in that way too. You want to get a record, as good as we can right now also, especially at home before you go back on the road. Yeah, it's going to be a really good test, but hopefully we can come out on top, and that would be a great win if we could manage to somehow pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I hope. If we can get a win, that I think again that'll be a massive statement for this Galaxy team going up against RSL and RSL again. They have really good pieces on this team. I mean, Chicho Arango right now has just been on fire. He has 9 goals, 7 assists, I think, is from what he has right now. I mean, and again, it's not only just him. Obviously, they have great players all around, but like him going into RSL has just been a big difference maker for them. And like you said, they've always had that same style of play, but the quality of players has definitely changed for them. And Chicho Arango again, it's like, how are you going to contain that guy when he's been contributing no matter how he can, right? So I think that's going to be a big challenge for this Galaxy defense for sure. And hopefully we'll see how we contain that. But again, if you can find a way to win no matter what in this game, I think that still, regardless, that makes a big statement.
Yeah, we got 2 shutouts in our last 2 games on offense. Like, that's obviously not supposed to be happening, considering we're still, even after 2 straight games of getting shut out, we're still one of the better offenses in the league for sure. Coming back home, getting Ricky Puig back into the team, getting Joveljic back into the team. There's really no excuses offensively, especially for the 2 DP wingers. Like, they played a pretty bad last 2 games. You got to look at them this game and see, like, hey guys, you have to play so much better now. Ricky Puig has to play well. Joveljic, if he's in the starting lineup, has to play well. The whole offense has to play so much better than they did, and there's no excuse this time. They just have to try to get it done here.
Yeah, I mean, they just got to get it done in this one. And I think, again, you can say the offense maybe had some struggles because they had no Ricky Puig in this one and things like that. But, there is no excuse because you're going to have Ricky Puig. You're going to have Mark Delgado back. You're going to have Joveljic back being in the, right place, right spot, right to get those, tap-in goals or no matter how he could score, right? But, yeah, I mean, of course, for the offense, there's no excuse for them not to step up in this game. And I think, again, if they have an off day like they did in this one, I think that's where we have a lot of trouble for this team. But, again, we just got to be close with RSL, right? I think this could be a game where it could probably lead to multiple goals. It could lead to maybe, just in close in that matter. But at the same time, they just got to be the ones who have, the ones to come out on top, even if there is multiple goals in this game. But yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a close one regardless for sure in this game. And I don't know what to expect from it, to be honest. I really don't. But I just hope we just try to find a result, for this game.
I mean, I want more than a result. I want to win at home, especially coming back. At home, you always want to pick up 3 points. I want more than a tie, especially that we just got a tie. I think we need to get 3 points going back on the road for the next 2 games. I think this is a very important game to try to get 3 points from.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, like I said, you always got to win at home. You got to try to find a way to win at home. If you don't, it's kind of a little bit of a disappointment in a sense. But again, right now the Galaxy have been playing well at home, and hopefully that kind of motivates them as well coming back home. And I think it has motivated them as well, and the fans too. We've showed up so far at home this season, right? So at least if the fans show up and we do our thing, and they're going to be motivated to come out and play, and they're going to give out the best performance that they can. So yeah, I mean, again, I want to see the win. Hopefully it is a win, and if they do, that's going to be pretty big for them. And like you said, they're going to go on the road after this. So if they get a win before going on the road again, that's going to be big. And also, going into a double week game after this too, right? So that's going to be massive if you get a win before going into that too. Do you have any other final points you want to say about the RSL game, or should we move it on out?
Obviously, RSL has gone 7 games unbeaten, so this is a really good chance for the Galaxy to show out against the number 1 team in the Western Conference, put in a really good performance, coming back home for one more game, trying to get 3 points, and hopefully we can do that. It's definitely going to be a really good test, but that's what these teams want. We want these sort of hard tests to see where we're at, and hopefully we can come out on top of it.
Yeah, hopefully. And like we always say on this show, we can only hope for the best, right? So at the end of the day, yeah, we just got to go out there and try our best the way we can. Then, again, hopefully we get a win, hopefully we do, and it would be pretty massive. But anyways, yeah, I think that's going to do it for the episode. Can't thank you all enough for listening and watching. If you want to follow me at Insider Galaxy, follow me on Instagram, follow me on X. If you want to follow the Galaxy Central, go follow him on Instagram. And anything you want to say to the listeners before we go?
Yeah, hopefully we just pick up that home win. We really need it, and hopefully we're able to get that.
Yeah, hopefully. And also show out if you can. If you can make it to the game, go out, represent well, and, let's go make that a fortress like we hope we can. So for all the fans who go, go show out. But yeah, be a friend, tell a friend about the podcast, whenever you're listening to this podcast. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, rest of your night. And let's just hope for the best, guys. Thank you all. And G's up.
7 words.